Good day everyone, I am Gionalyn Austria together with Dayan Agsulio, Christian Edward Castro, Harrison J. Edralin, Vincent Daniel Lorenzo. Together we will share our case study analysis titled Behind Closed Doors, Coping with a Terrible Office Tyrant. This case highlights how one person's negative attitude at the top can poison trust, silence truth, and create a fearful work environment. In this presentation, we will explain how the president's behavior influenced the decision making and communication of senior managers, which core values were violated, how distorted perception damaged relationships, what emotional reactions emerged, and how a deeper understanding of attitudes, values, and perception could have helped this company avoid serious harm.
The case focuses on real scenario described by workplace consultant John McKee. During what should have been a routine monthly meeting, the president of a regional retail chain threw a chair at the wall in anger after seeing disappointing sales figures. This single outburst turned an ordinary business discussion into a frightening, demoralizing event. When a leader reacts with threats instead of solutions, they replace the trust with fear. Employees quickly learn that honesty might cost them their safety or career. So instead of sharing problems openly, people hide their mistakes, filter data, or stay silent. This directly shows how the president's personal attitude shaped the whole organization's behavior and decision making.
This event took place in February 2007 at the company's regional headquarters during a regular monthly performance meeting.
The case is viewed from the perspective of a vice president responsible for the women's apparel department. The VP's main responsibility is to present honest performance results so the company can plan realistically and improve where needed. However, when the president pushes honesty with threats, this VP has to make difficult choices: speak up and risk humiliation, or stay silent and protect themselves. This viewpoint shows how perception, accurate or distorted, changes behavior. The VP no longer sees the president as a supportive leader, but as someone unpredictable and unsafe. This perception pushes people to communicate less and avoid eye contact and hide mistakes. In a healthy company, people trust their leaders. Here, they fear them, damaging relationships, blocking teamwork, and creating invisible walls between colleagues. This addresses the third guide question about how perception affects relationships, communication, and conflict.
At the heart of this case is a serious problem. How can senior managers perform effectively and communicate honestly when they know that the president might react with aggression? The president's attitude creates an environment where fear is stronger than the truth. This fear breaks trust, silences voices, and makes people feel unsafe. All signs of a toxic climate.
Our short-term objective is to help managers cope safely with the president's behavior while staying professional. This means they must learn how to control how they deliver difficult news, keep clear records, and support each other emotionally. In the long term, the goal is to hold toxic leaders accountable, rebuild trust, and create a workplace where people feel safe to tell the truth, not just what leaders want to hear. A better understanding of attitude, values, and perception would help leaders see how fear destroys trust. Respect, emotional intelligence, and psychological safety must guide leadership behavior every day. Without these core values, even a company with good products or strong profits will eventually suffer because its people are afraid to speak up. This answers our fifth guide questions about how a better understanding could lead to healthier outcomes.
Now let's tackle the types of diversity this case has. Diversity also shapes how people react to toxic leadership. Younger employees today expect safe spaces and respectful leaders. A president who throws things and yells violates their basic expectations, pushing them to disengage or resign. Cultural differences matter too. Some cultures views confrontation from a boss as normal, while others see it as deeply shameful and demoralizing. Gender diversity plays a big role. Women and women of color often hesitate to speak up in hostile environments because they fear being labeled as emotional or difficult. And for neurodivergent people, unpredictable outbursts causes even more stress and difficulty focusing. These perspectives shows how perception and core values respect inclusion, psychological safety, and must guide leaders if they want to build a culture where everyone can contribute fully.
Our SWOT shows that this company's main strength is that a few managers still hold on to integrity. They report the truth, even when it's risky. But the weaknesses are serious. A president who damages trust, breaks psychological safety, and punishes the truth. While there are also big opportunities. Leadership training, conflict management, and safe feedback channels could rebuild trust and support honest communication. The biggest threats are losing talented staff to resignation, suffering a reputation crisis, or facing legal consequences for unsafe behavior. Without change, the company's risks becoming known as a place of where fear rules over solutions.
For our alternative courses of actions, the group proposed three actions. First, managers should formally record incidents and work with HR to build evidence for accountability. Second, they can share performance updates early to reduce shocks that trigger tantrums. But the strongest action is to implement a 360-degree feedback system. This system lets employees safely and anonymously share how leadership behavior affects them. Honest feedback can help leaders see blind spots and understand how their attitudes impact trust and teamwork. Over time, this can reduce fear and rebuild honest relationships.
Our recommendation is to adopt the 360-degree feedback system. It supports a culture of respect and openness by giving employees a voice without fear of retaliation. It helps leaders grow emotional intelligence, become aware of how they've been perceived, and change harmful behaviors. It also gives HR clear evidence to take action if abusive patterns continue. When everyone, including the top leaders, is held accountable, trust can slowly be rebuilt within an organization.
In closing, this case proves that toxic leadership does not just hurt feelings, it destroys trust, silences truth, and blocks the teamwork needed to solve problems. A company that values respect, honesty, and psychological safety can face bad news calmly and find solutions together. Leaders must understand that their attitude shapes how people behave and how safe they feel to speak up. That understanding makes the difference between a fearful, silent company and a strong, collaborative one.
Now let us move on to the guide questions. Number 1, how did the individuals or group's attitudes influence their behavior and decision making in the organization? Inside the case study, despite the president thinking he was fostering a work environment that had an open and honest discussion, the president tended to respond with bad news, with anger and threats, creating a climate of fear. Because of this, when delivering reports, the vice president makes sure to hold back on details to avoid triggering a tantrum. This becomes an issue since workers are more concerned when defending themselves rather than contributing to solutions, making decision making and communication difficult to help the company.
Key values such as respect, professionalism, honesty, and psychological safety were violated. The president's temper tantrum shows a lack of self control and basic respect for others, which sends a message that emotional outbursts and intimidation are acceptable at the top. It damages the honesty and integrity across the organization. In contrast to the vice president, who demonstrated honesty and integrity in the case study, he chose to deliver the truth and accept the backlash from their boss.
The president had a distorted perception that he was fostering a work environment that had an open and honest discussion. In reality, this could be farther from the truth, as he is seen to be emotionally unstable and unpredictable when something does not sit right with him in the case study. This leads to hostility rather than having a constructive conversation between employees and the boss.
The reactions that emerged from this case were defined by fear, instability, and a lack of psychological safety, showing that there is a toxic work environment within the company, which emerged from the president's aggressive behavior, creating a workforce that had low morale and made people feel threatened, which made honest communication and collaboration nearly impossible.
In what ways could a better understanding of attitude, values, and perception have improved the outcomes in the case? If the president had emotional intelligence and understood the value of respect, empathy, and calm leadership, perhaps the outcome would be different in this case study. It could have potentially addressed values around the psychological safety of employees before they turn into bigger issues. Overall, this case analysis could have led to better communication, stronger trust, and a healthier, more productive workplace.
And that is it for our presentation. Thank you so much for your attention, and we hope that our analysis clearly shows how attitudes, values, and perceptions influence everything in an organization, from decisions and relationships to trust and outcomes.